Welcome to this week's Who Dares Sins, where this episode, I've got someone who wants to remain completely anonymous, does not even want me to say where the incident happened. And I'll honour that. All right? Not a problem. The other one is one of mine. And he knows me well, and I owe him a couple of quid. And we'll find out that in the second part. But for now, I'm going to talk about this guy that wants to remain completely anonymous. He was posted somewhere, can't say where, and there was a troop piss-up happening. And he wanted to be on this troop piss-up. He went out and he bought himself some clothes. That's what you do, don't you? Go out, get yourself some new clothes. He bought some desert wellies. He bought what can only be described as a honking, yellow-checked, very squaddy in the 90s shirt. And he bought himself some white Levi's. Tight white Levi's. The type you used to be able to play black spot. And if you don't know how to play black spot, that's for another day. Anyway, he's got himself this clobber. He thinks he looks the absolute nuts in it. And he gets himself ready and changed to go out on the swally with his mates who he's meeting at said location. So, the only thing he's missing really is a Helly Hansen. But anyway, in his 90s squaddy dress, off he goes. Down to the boozer to meet all his mates who are already out and probably similarly dressed to himself. And they have a great night. Now, at the time where he is, there's an Irish ale that everybody's drinking, from the captain down to the private. And it's sort of like the fashionable drink. I'm going to tell you what they're drinking. It's Caffrey's. Now, Caffrey's it's not the strongest beer, but it is a beer. It's creamy. It's not Guinness. Some people are all right with it. Some people ain't. All right, that's all I'm going to say. He has a few of these, and he quite likes it, and he's chucking them in. But he knows deep down he's probably going to play havoc with him later. There's some scoff on. He has a scoff. Honking scoff, do you know what I mean? It's tipped up. It's just one of these Garrison boozer type things that's just ploughed out some honking sandwiches and a few bits and pieces, probably some prawn vol-au-vents in there that have been sat in the sun all day, that sort of thing. And anyway, he's having a great time. He doesn't care about that. He's drinking these Caffreys. He has a couple more. He has a few more and a couple on top. You know the score. He's absolutely steaming drunk. Now, he's the kind of soldier, he says to me, his words, who lets himself down on a regular basis. All right. So he's thinking to himself, I'll probably cut away fairly early on tonight and I'll get myself out of the way. So he does. He makes his excuses. He cuts away and he walks home. Now, he's walking home. He gets that old squelching feeling in his belly. The Caffrey's is kicking in. He gets sort of like a little bit further and it's like proper rumbling. His stomach's giving it Billy Big Bollocks. It's proper turning over. And as he gets through camp, shows his ID card and he's on his way to the block, an involuntary movement occurs within his bowel system and he fills his fucking pants. Fills his pants. The brown macaroni monster is in his trousers. Now, luckily, he ain't got that far to go, so he's literally walking around the parade square, up the stairs, and he's there, and he can get changed and get himself to bed, and nobody will see him, and he thinks he's got away with it. As he turns into his block, here's the clip of high heels coming down the stairs. And as he looks to see who it is, even more, because it's a girl that he's got a bit of a crush on. Now, he's a bit of a munter himself, and he thinks, well, she probably won't like me. I'll just ignore her and I'll walk straight past and nothing will ever get said and she won't realise that I've shit my pants. I'll keep my distance. I won't talk. So he gives her a bit of a wide berth on the stairs. As he walks past, she says hello. He says hello back and she says, oh, I like your shirt. To which he says, thanks. She then says, it would look a lot better on the floor of my bedroom. A blatant come on. Jackpot, he's in. But no, he's not, because his pants are full of said brown liquid. He's mortified. He's absolutely mortified. He doesn't know what to do. The only thing that comes to mind is he rips the shirt off his back, chucks it at her, says, why don't you see what it looks like later? And runs into his room where he proceeds to clean himself up, lock his door. Needless to say, she never, ever said another word to him, never even looked him in the eye, completely ignored him. But there's more. She was actually on her route to the piss-up that he'd just left. She's now got his shirt, which she thinks, actually, put on, tied up in a knot, looks all right, goes to said party. The next morning, his mates, realising that it was his shirt as soon as she walks in, and she says nothing, are ribbing him, saying, well, we know why you left. We know where you've been. We know what you've done. He doesn't want to say nothing. So he just goes along with it. Yeah, you know the score, lads. I don't say nothing, blah, blah, blah. Plays it on, plays the big hero like he's nailed his chick, sent her to the party and gone to bed. He's giving it the big one. Little do they know, and he wasn't about to tell them either, that he was really in his room scraping macaroni out of his soiled Levi's, and he'd given her the old nudge, get lost. So, that's the story. He wants to get it out in the open. He says he's not going to give his name, but if you were there, you would know. He also still has a bit of a crush on the said girl. Now, he's not seen her for years, so he doesn't know if she's moved on, if she's got a fella, if she's married, what she's done, if she could even have kids and be out by now. He doesn't know. But he has said if she's watching, he's still got a crush on her. He didn't mean it how it came across. He couldn't afford to get near you because he absolutely stank. He would love to get together. So look, listen, if at the very least you are watching this and you are still single, well, he's still single as well. Let Big Phil play Cupid and you can go and see him. If not, if you've moved on with your life and you're doing whatever you do and you see this and you realise it was you, well, there you go. At least you know what happened now. And we can't turn back the time, but he is extremely sorry for what happened. The next story then is one of my own again. And it's to a friend of mine, Jonah, who's a very good friend of mine. And we were doing a march out. Now, for those of you who don't know what a march out is, we lived in married quarters and we were moving to Omar. Now, the march outs in those days, and I think they still are now, were extremely bullshitty, to say the least. Everything had to be clean. Everything had to be handed over as you found it, etc., etc., etc. There was no margin for wear and tear, even though they said there was margin for wear and tear. There never was. And when the family's officer came round, because it was in those days, it wasn't the civvies, it was the family officer came round, he would be running his white gloves over absolutely everything. Now, you could get away with loads of stuff. You could fill the holes with toothpaste in the walls, you know, little holes where you're taking your pictures down and that sort of stuff. You used to fill in with toothpaste, paint over the top of it. You know, you do all sorts of tricks and bend the rule and try and get away with stuff. And 9 times out of 10, you had a vested interest too, because there was a financial implication. Anything that wasn't right got paid for by you. Now, the big thing that everybody struggled with was the cooker. The cooker was an absolute nightmare, all right? You can imagine, you know, if you've been there for 2 years, you've cooked in this thing, you've cleaned it, but you've never had it apart, you've not cleaned it properly. Now you've got to hand it back, and you're going to get billed a few £100 if it's wrong. So there was a thing going around where people used to take their cookers apart, buy this acetone stuff from the chemist, bung it in a black bag, bung the acetone in with it, and it used to come out new. Brilliant. All you got to do is get your cooker apart. So I'd done mine, done a fairly decent job. I was quite happy. Used to take it apart, get the bits and pieces, put them in the bag, put the acetone in, leave it for 24 hours, get it back out the bag, brand new. Cooker back together. Mate of mine, Jonah, he couldn't do it. He was really struggling. He's like, Phil, can you give me a hand? I said, yeah, I'll give you a hand. I went round. I was in working dress today, and I thought, right. I went round straight after work, rather than going home, went round here, still in working dress, got the thing apart. He had a pair of pliers and some screwdrivers. I had the same sort of thing, different screwdrivers, got this thing apart, got it in the bag, 24 hours later, bang, 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 job's a good one, right? No, not for Jonah. He can't get the thing back together, and the guy, the family's officer, is coming round that morning. So he phones me up in a bit of a panic. Phil, can you come round now? So I puts my joggers on, runs round his house. Oh dear, right, here we go. So we bash this thing together, but we can't get it right. We can't get it together. It's like, whatever we do, it just won't go right. It won't sit. It's like, it looks like the Leaning Tower of Pisa. It's horrible. So eventually we manage to bash it together. We're missing about 4 or 5 bolts. And that's why it won't go together properly. I'm thinking, and every time we get it to a certain state, no, we need that. No, is we one of those? Is there one? No, there ain't. We're like, shit. So We bash this thing together, right? We give it a couple of kicks. We sort of like get it to a state where it almost looks right, but needless to say, when the family's officer opens the door, the thing goes ka-dunk. He realises the cooker's fucked. He bills poor Jonah for the cooker. I go back to my house. Gutted for Jonah, got billed for his cooker. I've got to go back to work in the afternoon, so I pull my working dress on. As I pull my trousers up, I've got 4 or 5 bolts in my pocket. I've got the bolts that he needed. It's my fault. So I go round to see him with every intention of telling him, but he's pretty pissed off with it. And I thought, look, I'll leave it for now. I'll tell him later. But then push becomes a shove, and I don't do it, and I don't tell him. And I'm sort of like, worried about how can I tell him? I don't tell him. I try and compensate by buying him beers whenever I see him and all that sort of stuff. But I hadn't told him. His missus would probably want to fill me in, and she was scarier than he was. And I'm like, oh, no, horrible. So anyway, over the years, this thing's been forgotten. But Jonah, I want to reignite the flame. I owe you for a cooker, son, and I will pay you. I promise you I'll pay you. Yeah, it was me. It was my fault. I had the bolts in my pocket, all right? It was, I don't know how they ended up there, but they ended up there. And that's it. So if your missus is still about as well, I apologise to her, because I know she would probably want to flatten my plums big time for that, because you got billed. But I will sort you out. I will square you away. Come and see me. I'll pay for your cooker. All right? I'll give you it back with a couple of beers as interest. How about that? All right. That was Who Dares Sins. I'm glad I've got that off my chest. Listen, if you've got a story you need to get off your chest, if you've got something you need to tell me, if you've buggered someone's goods up and not told them for years and now you want to compensate them, let me know and I'll get it on the show.